That night the men and horses rested, and before dawn the Christians were armed and ready, and the Moors were surprised that they were eager to fight because the Moors had not been able to bury their dead. The battle took place on the second day, and it was very cruel and bloody. Large numbers of Moors died, but not very many Christians. For every Christian, 100 Moors died. The reason so many Moors were killed was because they weren't as well armed as the Christians, and their horses and trappings weren't as good. The battle lasted 5 days, and the Moors couldn't endure it any longer because of the stench from the corpses, so they sent messengers to the Christians asking for a truce. King Escriano and Trnt felt very pleased, and they agreed willingly. The Moors then took their dead and threw them into the river, each with a note of identification attached so that downriver their relatives could bury them. But there were so many dead bodies that the river was stopped up and the water had to change course. Then the Moors went up the mountain while the Christians went back to the city. During this truce, the Marquis of Luzana arrived. He was a servant to the King of France. In Tunis, he heard of Trnt's great victories, and he decided to go to him. The Moors decided to leave one night before the truce was over and go to the mountain of Fez, where they could defend themselves against the Christians. So very unexpectedly, near at the hour of midnight, they broke camp and went on their way. Early the next morning, the guards came running to the city gates to warn the captain that the Moors were leaving. When Trnt saw that they had gone beyond the pass, he set himself to conquering all the kingdoms and lands this side of the pass. After many days had gone by, Lord Argument said to the captain, "My lord, it seems to me that if we want to end this conquest quickly, I should go beyond the pass to conquer the villas, castles, and cities there. After your lordship has taken over these kingdoms, you can go over to that land, and you will easily be the master of all Barbary." Trnt was pleased with what Lord Argument told him. He consulted King Escriano, and they agreed that they should leave soon. Lord Argument departed with 10,000 men on horseback and 18,000 foot soldiers. When he had gone beyond the pass, he learned that the kings had left, and each had gone back to his own land. Seeing that there were so few armed men in that land, Lord Argument began to conquer it, and he took over many cities, villas, and castles, some willingly and others by force. They came near a city called Montangata, which belonged to the daughter of the king of Balamria. This king had died at the beginning of the war, and to her betrothed. When the people in the city learned that the Christians were so nearby, they held a council and decided to send the keys of the city to Lord Argument, and, very kindly, he took them and granted them everything they requested. But when they were near the city, the rulers changed their minds and decided that they would die before they would surrender. When Lord Argument saw that he had been mocked, he decided to go into battle, for he was as bold and as hard as he could be. As he came close to a wall, they shot at him with a crossbow. The arrow hit him in the mouth and came out the other side. When his men saw him stretched out on the ground, badly wounded, they thought he was dead. They put him on a shield and carried him to his tent, and they fought no more that day. Then Lord Argument made a vow to God and to the holy apostles that because of the way they had been deceived him, and because of the great pain in his wound was causing him, he would not leave until the city was taken, and his sword had slain everyone, men and women, large and small, old and young, and he quickly sent word to Trnt. When Trnt received the news that his cousin had been so badly wounded, he and all his men went to the city. Before they could dismount, he ordered them to attack the city, and the battle was so fierce and so harsh that they took a large tower, a mosque, attached to the city walls. When night fell, Trnt ordered a halt to the fighting. In the morning, the Moors sent word to the captain that they would surrender on condition that they be allowed to live by their own laws, and they would give them 30,000 gold crowns every year and free all the prisoners they held. Trnt answered that because of the act they had committed against his cousin, they would have to go to Lord Argument, and whatever he decided would be done. When the Moors stood before Lord Argument, he would consent to nothing, no matter how much they pleaded with him. Then the town decided to send their lady and several maidens to see if they could reach an agreement with him, since many times a maiden's pleas are successful. At this point, the book presents an incident to relate of the deeds of Placer de Mavia.